Okay, let's dive in. Picture this. A remote military base, way up in Alaska, icy, stark.
Hmm.
And it's the backdrop for this really high-stakes meeting, August 15th, 2025.
Yeah, a meeting that honestly sent ripples across the globe almost instantly.
Exactly. And those ripples, they travel thousands of miles, landing right in the middle of everyday life, affecting, the price of the shirt you're wearing, maybe the fuel in your car.
It's fascinating, isn't it? How decisions made in, well, a chilly room in Alaska can directly shake up India's economy.
Right.
It just highlights how interconnected everything is now. Trade, energy, conflict. It all ties together.
Absolutely. So that's our mission today on this deep dive. We want to cut through the noise, look at the
Yeah,
connections.
unpack what this whole thing really means.
For India's economy, its place on the world stage, and, well, ultimately for you listening,
Hmm.
we'll look at these new U.S. tariffs, India's energy strategy.
Especially the Russian oil aspect.
Yes, and also that little unexpected glimmer of hope that came out of those Alaska talks.
So let's get into it. The setting itself was pretty unique. Joint base Elmendorf-Richardson in Anchorage.
Not your usual diplomatic setting.
No, definitely not. A frosty military base. It kind of set a certain tone, didn't it? A reflection of the cold realities, maybe.
It really did. And the main players, of course, U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Meeting for almost 3 hours, their first proper face-to-face since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine back in 2022.
And the war in Ukraine was obviously the main topic.
Right. But here's where it got, well, unexpected. People were hoping for maybe a ceasefire announcement.
That seemed like the logical step.
It did, but that's not what happened. Instead, Trump proposed a direct peace agreement between Kyiv and Moscow.
So skipping the ceasefire step altogether.
Exactly. He explicitly suggested bypassing it, even stating that Russia is a very big power compared to Ukraine, implying, a direct deal was the way forward.
Wow, okay, that's audacious. So no immediate ceasefire, but this new proposal on the table. How did India see this? They're walking such a fine line between the U.S. and Russia.
Yeah, for New Delhi, it was definitely what you'd call a mixed bag. They were watching this incredibly closely.
I bet.
Because even before the summit, India was already feeling the heat from the U.S.
Over the Russian oil.
Precisely. Their continued and quite significant purchase of Russian oil. It's a huge part of their energy mix now.
How significant are we talking?
While Russian crude makes up nearly 36% of India's total crude imports, that works out to about 1.8 million barrels per day in 2024.
Wow, 1.8 million barrels a day. And it's discounted, right? That's the key economic factor.
That's absolutely key. This discounted Russian crude has saved India billions.
Which directly helps keep fuel prices down at home. That's not just economics, that's...
It's a lifeline for millions, essential for household budgets, for businesses.
Yeah.
Very politically sensitive, too.
But this lifeline drew serious attention from Washington.
Oh, absolutely. Resulting in that 25% tariff on a wide range of Indian exports. That kicked in on August 7th.
And there was more threatened, wasn't there? An extra penalty.
Yes, an additional penalty was looming, initially set for August 27th, specifically targeting India's energy relationship with Moscow. A clear pressure tactic.
So this tariff threat, what kind of economic damage are we looking at for India?
It's substantial. India exported about $87 billion worth of goods to the U.S. in 2024.
Okay.
And the estimates suggest around $66 billion of that is now vulnerable because of these tariffs.
$66 billion. That's a massive exposure.
Huge. It could potentially shave, say, 20 to 50 basis points off India's GDP growth next fiscal year. That's a real hit.
And which sectors are feeling it most?
You're looking at industries like textiles, gems and jewelry, auto components, often very labor-intensive sectors.
Meaning jobs are directly at risk.
Exactly. And it hits specific regions hard, too. Think Tamil Nadu, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Karnataka. These are key industrial hubs.
Some of the markets reacted.
They did. India's main stock indices, the Nifty 50 and Sensex, both dipped around 0.35%. And the rupee, it weakened quite a bit through July as all this uncertainty built up.
So the pressure is clearly mounting. What's the official rationale from the U.S. side? From Trump?
Well, Trump has mentioned a few things. He's complained that India's own tariffs on American goods are far too high. That's been a long-standing point for him.
Okay.
But he also directly linked it to the Russian oil purchases and India buying Russian military gear, saying it fuels Moscow's war machine.
So connecting it directly to the Ukraine conflict.
Yes, and he even took aim at India's role in the BRICS group, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa,
Right.
calling it anti-the United States and, quote, an attack on the dollar. So it's a broad critique of India's foreign policy alignment as well.
It sounds like a really complex, multi-layered pressure campaign, a very precarious spot for India.
Extremely precarious, but then something shifted. A hint of change came directly from that Alaska meeting.
This is the glimmer of hope part.
Yeah, exactly. After the summit, on August 15th, Trump did an interview with Fox News. And he hinted, pretty strongly, that the additional tariff penalty might be delayed.
How did he phrase it?
He said, and this is the quote, "Because of what happened today, I don't have to think about that tariff right now. I may have to think about it in 2-3 weeks."
Okay, so not canceling it, but
Yeah.
kicking the can down the road. Suggesting that August 27th deadline might just pass.
Precisely. It suggested the deadline might quietly lapse, a crucial bit of breathing room for India, potentially.
And this came right after talking with Putin.
Directly after, Trump mentioned that things like land swaps and security guarantees were on the table regarding a potential Ukraine-Russia peace deal.
So the tariff threat becomes a bargaining chip in a much larger game.
It seems that way. Connecting the dots, it looks like progress or potential progress on Ukraine might influence the economic pressure on India. Geopolitics and personal ambition, like maybe chasing a Nobel Peace Prize, suddenly intersecting with trade policy.
Fascinating. So how did India react to this hint of a delay?
Relief. There was definitely a welcome response. India's Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson, Ranthir Jaiswal, put out a statement.
What did they say?
They said, India welcomes the summit meeting in Alaska. Their leadership in the pursuit of peace is highly commendable. The way forward can only be through dialogue and diplomacy.
Which aligns perfectly with Prime Minister Modi's stance. He's consistently said, this is not the era of war.
Exactly. And sources within the Indian government were described as cautiously optimistic. Optimistic for the delay, but cautious because, well...
Trump's known for unpredictability.
Right. But still, it was a much-needed positive signal in a very tense situation.
So India's navigating this incredibly complex path. You've got the U.S. relationship on one side.
Which is deep and important. A strategic partnership built over 25 years. Defense, counterterrorism, tech. More than 36 working groups involved. It's robust.
Clearly strained right now by these tariffs. I remember reading a U.S. foreign policy expert, Basant Sangera, called it a serious crisis.
Yes, he said it needed an urgent reset. There was real concern that if tariffs went even higher, say 50%, which was floated, the political damage could be very hard to repair.
And then on the other side, you have the relationship with Russia.
Which is also long-standing, decades of cooperation, especially, again, in energy and defense.
And that Russian oil connection is key here. It's worth stressing, isn't it, that Russian oil itself isn't actually sanctioned by the U.S. or EU.
That's a critical point. It's perfectly legal for India to buy it. And for India, being the world's third largest energy consumer, importing 85% of its crude, this oil has been a vital economic tool.
And India defends these purchases, right?
Right.
They argue it helps global markets.
They do. Their argument is that by absorbing this Russian crude, they've actually helped prevent even bigger global price spikes, kept Brent crude, the benchmark, from soaring past its peak in March 2022, which was around $137 a barrel.
And they point to compliance with the price cap mechanism.
Yes. They emphasize they adhere to the G7 EU price cap of $60 per barrel for the crude itself. So they frame it as responsible economic management, not defiance.
It's a nuanced argument. But then, Trump claimed in that Fox interview that India had stopped buying Russian oil.
He did, which was incorrect.
And India corrected the record pretty quickly.
Yes, New Delhi immediately clarified that Indian refiners are still buying Russian crude based on economic viability price, logistics, no official halt.
So that statement by Trump looks more like maybe an attempt to pressure them publicly.
That's certainly how it was interpreted by many analysts, an attempt to shape the narrative and increase pressure on New Delhi.
And has there been pushback from within India politically?
Oh, definitely. India's defense minister, Rajnath Singh, gave quite a strong speech around August 10th.
What did he say?
Without naming Trump, he criticized those unable to accept India's growth, calling them sake boss, like everyone's boss who question India's rise.
Asserting India's position.
Very much so. He declared no power could stop India becoming a global powerhouse. He highlighted India's own growing defense exports up dramatically since 2014.
From 600 crore rupees to over 24,000 crore now, I think.
Exactly. And he stated very clearly, if any country has a dashing and dynamic economy, it is India's. It was a strong message of self-confidence and strategic autonomy.
A clear signal they won't be easily pushed around. Okay, so we've got the diplomacy, the economics, but let's bring it down to the human level. What are the real stakes here for ordinary people?
This is crucial because these aren't just abstract numbers. The Federation of Indian Export Organizations warned that more tariffs could make many businesses simply not viable, especially in those labor-heavy sectors.
I mentioned textiles, gems.
Right, and former RBI Governor Urjit Patel called the tariffs India's worst fears, warning of a potential needless trade war.
And you see the anxiety reflected in the markets, the rupee's value?
Absolutely. It underscores the urgency. Think about someone like Ramesh, a textile worker in Coimbatore down south. His factory makes shirts, many for the U.S. market. Okay, they've already cut shifts because they're worried about falling orders due to tariffs. He basically said, "We hear about tariffs, but for us it just means fewer hours, less pay." Direct impact.
And on the other side, the cost of living impact. You mentioned fuel prices earlier.
Yes. Consider someone like Priya, maybe a teacher in Delhi, using a scooter to commute. That discounted Russian oil has helped keep petrol costs from spiraling.
Which is a big part of a household budget.
Exactly. She expressed worry that if fuel prices jump because of all this, her whole monthly budget could just collapse. So these global events have very real, very personal consequences.
It really drives home the point. So India's at this crossroads. The tariff delay offers a bit of breathing space, but August 27th is still out there.
It's looming, and Trump remains unpredictable. He clearly enjoys the role of deal maker, maybe eyes that Nobel Peace Prize.
Which might make him prioritize a diplomatic win over purely economic pressure?
Possibly, but his negotiating style is also famously tough, win at all costs, so India has to be prepared for anything.
What are their options then? What practical steps can they take?
Well, diversifying markets is one. They're already exploring alternatives, speeding up trade talks with the EU, Brazil, trying not to be overly reliant on the U.S. market.
Makes sense.
There's also talk of maybe buying more U.S. oil if the price is right, as former diplomat Syed Akbaruddin suggested. That could be a conciliatory gesture.
Okay.
Or they could try to push Russia harder on engaging in genuine ceasefire talks, hoping that eases U.S. pressure.
Using their leverage with Moscow.
Potentially. And then there's the option of just doubling down on strategic autonomy, standing firm.
Which seems to have significant political backing within India.
It does. Opposition leader Mallikarjun Kharge warned against bending to arbitrary penalties. And you saw editorials, like in the Indian Express, saying India must stand firm. There's definitely a strong nationalist sentiment.
And they're keeping diplomatic channels open elsewhere too, right? Modi going to the SKO summit in China. Doval meeting Putin.
Exactly. It's that multifaceted foreign policy in action. Balancing relationships, keeping options open, not putting all their eggs in the U.S. basket or the Russian basket.
It really is a high-wire act. This
Sure.
whole situation, the Alaska summit, the tariffs, the oil politics, it feels like a snapshot of the current global power dynamics.
It absolutely is a microcosm of this complex dance. India's ability to navigate this, to balance these powerful relationships, will really shape its future in a world that seems increasingly driven by unilateral moves and leverage.
And we'll be watching the next steps closely.
Yeah.
Trump meeting Zelensky on August 18th, potential follow-ups with Putin.
Yeah, the situation is still very fluid. For now, as that government source said, it's still fingers crossed in New Delhi, hoping dialogue wins out.
A fascinating, complex story still unfolding. It really highlights India's delicate position on the global stage.
And maybe this brings us to a final thought for you listening. We heard Defense Minister Rajnath Singh's confident assertion, no power in the world can now stop India. So the question becomes, in this world of shifting alliances and strong-arm tactics, how does a rising power like India actually maintain that independent path? How does it protect its interests and its people without getting pulled too far in one direction or compromising its long-term goals?
That's the core challenge, isn't it?
It really is. And the next few weeks, maybe months, will give us some clues as to how India intends to answer that question. It's definitely something worth watching.